I think the next level of value is kind of like, well, all I'm doing when I'm chatting with data is assigning more homework.
Yeah.
And I saw this with like when I was in Power Virtual Agents early on, whereas like you would see customers, they would see some of these capabilities, natural language understanding. Hey, I can ask these questions. Hey, I've got this list of frequently asked questions. Let's go ahead and ingest it into here. I can start talking with my data. And what we would find is that that was a great sort of initial use case to get people interested in chatbots,
Yeah.
but it didn't keep people there. It was kind of like as soon as that data becomes stale, that information becomes stale, then it was like gone.
Yeah.
And so people weren't as interested in it. And once again, you're not getting the value. So we would always encourage customers to think about how do I transact on this data? So think about customer support. Maybe I'm talking to a retail site
Hmm.
and I can say, like, what are your hours? Oh, our hours are 9 to 5. Great. I could look that up on the webpage. It's like, what's your shipping policy or return policy?
Hmm.
Okay, great. Once again, I could have done that on the website.
Yeah.
But then it's like, now what if it's a matter of like, hey, I want to return this item. And it's like, great. How can I help you with that? And it basically starts to do that for you,
Yeah.
where it's like in the system, it registers you want to return this. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to send you a shipping label, right? Like now you're starting to actually automate that last mile of work.
Hmm.
And so I think that's kind of the next step. And I think you're certainly hearing Microsoft start to talk about this. And I think when we've got our big conference season coming up, you're going to hear more and more about this.
Yeah.
Is this idea of like, instead of me giving you a list of like 5 things you need to do,
Hmm.
why don't me as like the agent, the sort of the AI, do those for you?
Yeah.
And so I think this is kind of a similar situation where we think about integration. So I might be able to say log a request inside, like I say, a help desk ticket for you. But what if I now start to try to solve that problem for you?
Hmm.
And so I think integration, we're particularly well positioned to do this as well, in part due to our triggers.
Yeah.
So let's take an example of say ServiceNow. Someone's on a chatbot, they log a ticket, it's now inside of ServiceNow. So what's kind of the paths that we can go down? Oh, okay, we're going to have a person come along, look at that ticket. Maybe ServiceNow does some sort of knowledge base correlation. It says, okay, here's some steps you can try, and then you get this person reaching out to the other person to do these types of things. And so now, what if it's like you've got an integration that's waking up
Hmm.
and it's going through and saying, hey, because I've now ingested these cases in the past, I have a pretty good idea of what needs to be done from this perspective.
Hmm.
Now, maybe there's things that's permissions. Maybe
Yeah.
you can now start to automate giving those permissions.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of like, I don't know, like there's a certificate or there's a system down, but like you can now start to like automate those specific tasks.
Yeah.
And for people that are concerned about, hey, these runaway processes, hey, the machines are going to take over,
Mm.
there's this concept of human in the loop. You could use the Teams connector
Hmm.
as part of this, where you give the human the override button. So you can have the generative AI say, hey, like these are the steps that I want to go perform.
Hmm.
Send it to the human. The human can take a look at it and say, approve, go for it, or reject,
Yeah.
and then stop it. And then the human can sort of pick that up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the next evolution of this is like, how do we start to like leverage all of this data, these knowledge bases that we do have? And then how do we actually, remove the human work altogether? Now, and I'm not talking like remove every human thing. That's not suggesting that. I'm like, obviously, like if you want to really extract value, you have to remove the work.
Yeah.
And so I think there's obviously this, spectrum, this continuum of like things that you can go after and
Hmm.
things you can't go after. And so it's one of those things where it's a maturity curve, and start simple,
Hmm.
have human in the loop, have oversight, have the off button, and basically go forward and still find value from that perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened with the technology. Actually, I agree with you 100%. When people are afraid of that it's going to take over, that's what's happening over the time.
Hmm.
In our community, as example, people once upon the time, people was thinking that Pesto going to live forever. It's become an irrelevant point to talk about. It's just, it has to be gone now.
Hmm.